Hello and welcome. My name is Terry Moore Miller. In one of our previous videos, the Consciousness Evolution System Part 4, how to transcend the 7 planetary rulers to reclaim our own soul. We went through one part that helped us with the understanding the 7 governors. And it said what the 7 governors were and what it is that they teach us. So they were, how do they limit us? What is it that they teach us? How we transcend. We have 2 different phases for transcending. What I want to focus on in this video is really to see if we can break down some of that information, right? I want to bring it down to earth and say, okay, what do we do with this information? What do we do with this information? When we go through the system and we are from 0 to 30, we know that that's the fall. We know we are going down into the darkness. And so when we explain that whole circle, the first part from 0 to 30, that's gravity. And what I mean by that is between 0 to 30, you're almost not even trying to be quote unquote bad or evil, as some of the texts put it. Okay, it's a natural state. So why am I saying this? Because a lot of times, especially as we get in later years, we tend to put certain bad connotation on teenagers and youngsters and stuff like that, where they're just so horrible. Well, that's gravity. They're not even trying to be bad. That's just what the nature of it is. And even my saying that, because I have kids that, no, they aren't 30 as yet, but I have kids that are from, let's say, 15 to 30. And I'm experiencing some of that. You go through and you're thinking, why are you thinking like that? Like, what on earth would let you think like that? And then, especially for me, I can remember that personally, that gravity just pulled me down as well, right? You get into so many different things and so many different people thinking that, everything is strange. Now, here's what happened. So that's gravity. So anything that is done from 0 to 30 that is not dealt with properly, adequately, can either just keep going, spiraling downwards, or we get stuck somewhere. Because here's what happened. And I think I've spoken about this before, where we have the 30 to 33 degrees. That is where the sun was born. This is where, when you look at the chart, so when we look at this chart, down here is where the sun is born. So if we were to look at this at like the zodiac, right? Down here this is Saturn right here, and that is a part of Capricorn. That's December 22nd. And then the sun is born on December 25th. That's actually the esoteric meaning, meaning of Christmas, really. Maybe we can go into that another time. So, what happened? Well, that is where you're expected to start to turn the corner. Okay? This also means that you're flattened out. We're using the circle, we're using different allegories or different things to explain this, but this is to bring it into a human perspective so that we can understand what's going on and to give you a visual for it. But you flattened out, you flatlined for a period of time. And as I said, the sun dies for 3 days, and then it rises again. And that is actually true. We are between December 22nd and December 25th. That happens. In our terms, we have flatlined. We went all the way down. Gravity just pulled us down into hell, as it were, and we just flatlined. Now, we can either stay flatlined, we can be fallen, and it's like a never-ending fall, or we can start to turn the corner. Now, that right there is what I would consider the hardest part to do. So between the 30 and 60 going up that loop, we're called awakening. Okay, so this side, between 30 to 60, this is the hardest part of the whole thing. Okay, that's the hardest part of the whole thing, because it depended on how far you fell and how hard you fell will determine what's going to happen there. But because it's an upward climb, it's an awakening, so you're going to be stripping away a lot of different things. This is where this part that I'm going to talk about today really comes in. Then you have the purification side. The purification side actually takes a momentum now from your awakening to boost it up. Okay? And so now, depending on how well you did there, you really can't go across the line of remembering, right? You really can't go across the line of remembering without getting that boost. You could be on the way up, and it's like slow. But then by the time you get here, if you actually get it, it's going to be like a faster travel, right? Yes, it says it's going to be another 30 years or whatever, right? But it's really going to be a faster travel during this part. And that part is challenging, but is not the worst part. The darkest part is the first 30. That's the darkest part. The most challenging part is from 30 to 60. Then from 60 to 90 is an easier path, because we have started to strip away a lot of things already. And so we're starting there to now fine tune and strip away more things. That's where order comes in, right? That's the masculine side. Then we are at 90 and we're going down. That's gravity. Gravity again is helping there. And so I would consider that the easiest part, because you are going into that with a lot of ammunition, with a lot of things that you know about yourself, reality, what's going on. It's not just you going in with like for instance, what I'm doing right now, which is to give you a description or a definition of it. By that point, you have experienced everything that you need to experience. Okay, so depending on where you are in the circle, the 7 governors will be doing something totally different. But here's what happened. Even though gravity is getting you to the line of remembrance, or the line of forgetting, right? Before you go back into, before your spirit and soul go back to from whence they came, you are now going to be going back through the 7 Archons. So here is the kicker. Here, you are learning about the 7 Archons, right? And you are trying your best here to deal with them. Okay? That's where the challenge is. That's where your trial and error is. Then when you come here, this part you're purifying that. So now it's more about understanding the Archons here. You're not fighting with them anymore. You're not trying to destroy them, as we say, right? here is where you're doing that, because this part right here is where they came on here, and then they grew on you until you get to 30. Then you have to try to strip them off by the time you get to here. Then here is more of an understanding as to how it is that you are cohabitating with them. And then this part is to strip them back off. This stripping off is the opposite. So if you think about it, here you really don't know much about the Archons and what's going on. You can definitely find out, and if you find out about them, it can help you in your development. Okay, here you're going to strip them from you, or figure out how to work with them. All right, this is the bread and butter right here, man. Between 30 to 60, figuring out how to work with them, that's the bread and butter right there. Okay, here is then you're saying, okay, how can they assist? And so when I say this is the bread and butter, because this is where the fight is. This is where the fight is really, right? You're going to try to get rid of them, and then here you're understanding how to work with them. And then here you're going to strip them again before you come over. So these are the two opposite sides. Okay, for as bad as it is here, it's much easier here, but then here you are releasing them. So that is one of the reasons I wanted to do this video, to sort of help guide through the different phases. My advice is to say, know about them between 0 to 30. And trust me, if you can go through this using the 4 states of health and the 5 guiding principles, your age can truly line up with how this is, and you don't have to worry about being unhealthy by the time you're 60. Like, we are born healthy. That's our natural state. And so we've done something to actually take health away from us. Be that as it may, it doesn't have to be on the same age. So, but I'm going to use that age range anyway, because that's how the system is set up. So between 0 to 30, you are getting indoctrinated with these. You really don't have much of a clue as to how to really deal with them. Knowing them, understanding them, knowing that they're there is actually good, but you don't have to work with them that much. Between 33 and 60 is where the work now is. That's where the work is. In that part, that is where we start to break through each of the different ones, because they came on starting at time and ending with illusion. And what we're going to do there is we're now going to go back through from 30 to 60 from illusion and go back to time. Okay, we're going to go from illusion to time, because when you came down, you came from, let's say you came from time to illusion, from illusion to time, from time to illusion, from illusion back to time. See how that works? And so by the time when you go from illusion to time on that side is how you're breaking out of it. So here it gets placed on you. So you go from time to illusion. So 0 to 30 is time to illusion, where it gets placed on you, and you're indoctrinated all the way through. By the time you're 30, you're buried in the illusion. Okay, you're buried in the illusion. You have 3 days, 3 years, Jesus, from 30 to 33, all those different things, 3 days on the cross, blah, blah, blah. You're buried in that illusion. You're buried in sin. Okay, then you now have to go from illusion to time, right? And you're gonna work your way through understanding them there. Then from 60 to 90, you're gonna go from time to illusion. Okay, then that's working through it again and saying, okay, now how do I work with this? So one of the first things you can work with is time, understanding time better, understanding energy better. You go all the way up to illusion. Then your last thing is to now say, okay, now this is my time to, this is the period of time that I'm going to use to really strip off all those governors. Okay, so now that I've explained that to you, when I'm not really going to go through much of the first part, because as I said, that is just gravity. Okay, you're just getting buried. I'm going to go from 33 up. So from 33 up, what we're doing is we're coming from time to illusion and illusion to time. So we have to go back through. So here are some of the things that will happen. Okay, so the first thing is the illusion that life itself is an illusion. What is happening to you is an illusion. And so how can you, or how can one figure out how to understand that this is an illusion? Well, in order to do that, we'll need to go through the understanding of how the layers of our mind and the layers of our reality, the layers of how we think. This is where this part comes in. Oops, there we go. Right? That's where this part comes in that says self is a prison. I only drew the first rectangle there, but it has another part at the top and another part on the bottom. The first one here is mind, then we have brain, then we have heart, and then you have the body. If you understand how your mind works, how our mind in 3D works, that helps quite a bit. Then we understand what really happens with the brain, that helps. You understand how it goes through to the heart, and then how it then gets experienced in the body. Okay, that will definitely help. So what can I tell you? By the time when you're in that section, you may be so ingrained in who you are, your thoughts, your ideas, your worry, the people who are around you, the things that you have come to recognize as yourself. You're so ingrained in that it's hard for you to think that you could be anything else. It's hard for you to imagine that you can live without certain material things, without certain individuals around you, without you being in certain interaction. That is the first part, because that is where that self-awareness that you are recognizing about yourself is coming in. Okay, and you're starting to realize, okay, yes, here are the reasons that I'm different from this other person. Here are the things that separate me from this society. Here are the things that separate us from, you can put yourself into a group as well. Okay, here's how I fit into this group. Here is how this religious background, this political influence, or anything like that, here is how I identify with that. Now, everything that I've just said is changeable. And so when we talk about illusion in the esoteric sense, what we're talking about there is the things that's passable or changeable. They're not fixed. Anything that's not fixed, that's veil, that's vapor. Okay, those are illusions. Clouds, just think about clouds. The clouds are there and they can stay there in a certain formation for a good while, but eventually they will pass. Eventually the way in which you think from one moment to the next, and let me give it a longer period of time, the way in which you think from 1 year to the next changes. So this is why it's considered an illusion. So if we can attach ourselves to that and recognize that it changes, then we can start to eliminate some of those processes that we go through in our heads. And so as an individual, you may need specific tools or specific actions that is going to help you with this on a daily basis. This is not something that I can give you here are 10 lists of stuff that you can do, even though yes, we can do that every now and again because certain things will work in general, but your life specifically is different. So this is where we said, hey, if you want to work with us, then we can figure out what parts that we need to go in and where it is that we need to approach, how it is that we need to approach this, right? What are some of the things that we need to do? And so I'm spending a lot of time on the illusion right there because it is the first barrier. And if it's unbroken, if we can't pierce that, or depending on how long it takes to pierce that, then it's really hard for you to go any further with the rest. Now, it doesn't mean you can't go anywhere with the rest. You can start there and then maybe, overlap with something else as you go through. So that's the first part. And of course, it's really hard sometimes to go through this and not give like concrete stuff about it. But the takeaway for understanding the illusion is for you to recognize that whatever it is that your circumstance is right now, you have control over letting it pass. We have control over letting it pass. It could even be very dire. How do we have control over letting it pass? And we'll go from let's go from an extreme, right? Where you really have no control over your own self. The only thing you have control over are your thoughts. That is where you begin. It's not about the control that is over your body. It's about the control that's over your thoughts. And even if someone wants you to think, act, look, eat, dress, whatever, a certain way, you have control over what's going on in here. So your responsibility is to act out physically what you need to do to be safe and secure. But mentally put yourself into a position that says, well, how do I slowly get out of this? Right? And from there, you'll start to say, okay, how do I get out of it? What is the outcome for me? My hiding from it and saying this situation is dire, I will never get anywhere, and I don't even want to talk about it, and every time this just gets me upset, and there's no way I can figure out any solution here. That's the plateau. That's where I'm like, all right, so you're flatlined. Okay, you're flatlined. You got buried, you got flatlined, and unfortunately you're not coming up as yet, right? When you start the ascend is when you can start realizing that you have the control over your own mind and over your own thoughts. That may take some time, but if you leave it to gravity is going to get you in the wrong direction. If you leave it to, I am just going to, one of the phrases that I will hear, I'm just going to live day by day. I'm just going to take it as it is. I'm going to go with the flow, whatever happens. Those are all great. Those are all great when you're in the correct flow, when you're in the correct stream, when you're actually connected to the universe a certain way where that flow is awesome. But this one, not there yet. Not there yet. Okay? I really wanted to go a little bit more in detail on the illusion of self and how it is that to recognize that you are actually in control. If it's depression, you're in control. We just need to figure out what are some of the things that you can do to stop the worrying about the past. If it's anxiety, we also need to figure out what are some of the things that we need to do to stop worrying about the future. If it's sadness, we have to figure out what are some of the things that we can do for you to be comfortable in the moment. Okay? And the main thing that I have seen where the reason for those, apart from the fact that, there are certain chemical imbalance that also causes that, is the individual's perception of their future, the individual's perception of their past, and the individual's perception of their current situation. So start by changing that perception, and things will turn out a little bit better. Maybe where you are, this seems like it's impossible, but start somewhere. Give yourself one little nugget each time for you to do this. So until next time, when we go through the next one, please remember to leave a comment. Tell us what it is that you think about the video, and if you like this type of content. Also, subscribe. Remember to hit the notification bell. Like the video if you can do that. Share if it speaks to you, when you think there are others that may be able to benefit from something like this. So we have like, comment, share, subscribe. Come on the journey. Hopefully these talks will give you something to grasp onto in order to help us through this spiritual journey. Okay? So namaste and